Interesting hand, by the way. The length of the, we're going to look at your work chart and work counterclockwise around the hand. But first, we're going to do the side charts, the palm shapes, and the types of finger tips. The length of the fingers are your talents. Nothing's good or bad. Long fingers mean one thing, short fingers mean another thing. And then your palm shape is an indication of your talents. But your personality shows in your type of fingertips. That's in the upper right-hand corner. You want to see a nice little fat pad right there at the base of your thumb. A nice little, when you get a nice little pad at the base of the thumb, indicates you're drinking a good amount of water and you're well hydrated. That's good for your sexual libido, by the way. Yours is excellent. Now, let's go over to palm shapes. You kind of got a cross between two different kinds. Square palm is an athletic and a round one is an artistic. And your palm's a little bit square at the top, but it's really round at the base. When you get the square and the round together, that's a musician hand. I certainly hope that you've taken advantage of that and you're a musician, because it's a very good musician hand. Look at the top of that sheet where it says types of fingertips. This is your personality. All of your fingertips are round. I see that a lot in the doctors and the nurses. Very compassionate, very caring person. Now let's jump back down to the thumb. You've got kind of a long thumb. That needs to come up to about halfway on the bottom of that flange on that index finger, and it's quite long. Says you'll do well in life. You have very good manual dexterity because you got a good grip with that thumb. The index finger is the boss finger, the leadership supervisor, and by the way, that's the sales finger too. But you got kind of a short thumb on that finger. Self-motivated worker. You work very well on your own. And you probably have to do that in sales. The middle finger is your business finger. When you have a real long finger in the middle, you have a good business sense. But you got kind of a short middle finger. More concerned with social issues than making the big bucks. Very compassionate person. But that shows in your fingertips too, because they're so round. You probably should have been in the health field. Here's your very best finger. Your ring finger and your little finger are your brain fingers. Your ring finger is your right brain. Your little finger is your left brain. And your right brain finger is excellent. Very creative, very imaginative, inventive. And then at the bottom of that, you got a couple of little lines, which is actually creative achievements. So that's something you might look into, is some type of creative ability. Maybe if you are a musician, maybe that would work very well for you. And then your little finger is above average. That means you work well with words and letters. It's a scholarly finger. I see that on the doctors and lawyers. It's not hard for you to write a report or have to do something like that that's in writing because of that longer finger. Okay, this is the one you really want to know about, I'm sure. Right at the base of that little finger are your marriage and your children lines. Now, looking at the end of the Heartline, well, you got little tassels on there, which means flirt lines. It really actually means you interact well with people, which is good for salesmen, I'll tell you. But that space in between the end of the Heartline and the ring around the little finger is where your marriage lines show. We only read this on the right hand because that right hand is your present and future. The left hand is past. So you have a couple of marriage lines on there. Down towards the Heartline is the early part of your life, and up towards the ring around the little finger is the later part of your life. So I can see that your marriage line, your first marriage line in there, it doesn't look very long, maybe 7 or 8 years. But then you've got a couple of relationship lines. I call them affection lines. They're the red marks in between the two marriages. Then you've got another marriage line. That is a nice, long, deep line. The deeper it is, the more you're attached in the marriage line. And that's a wonderful line. And it sits a little higher in your hand, so it's a little later in your life. And maybe that's the one you're in now, if you end up marrying her or whatever. It goes along, it's quite a long line, and goes over, and it tips down on the end. When it tips down on the end, your spouse dies before you do. If it tips up, you die before the spouse does. So it tips down on the end, even though it's quite a long line. And then after that, you have what looks like a relationship or an affection line. Just a short one. But you're getting towards the end of your years here. If you're 50, what were you, 56, 50, 59? Oh, I've got you living at the base of that middle finger. I've got you living to 79 years. So you got a good 20 years left. So that's the second marriage line. So the second is the best and the longest. I can see your one child in there, but I can see two. They go vertical. The marriage lines go horizontal from the outside to the inside of the hand. And then the children lines go vertical. I can see your one child, but I can see a couple of grandkids in that little section, I think. That's got kind of a light reflecting off of it, but looks like there's a couple of grandchildren lines in there. All right, here we are down to the good old heart line. That you want to see a nice curve in that heart line. It means loving, caring. Generally means you had a fairly good childhood and from a loving family. And you've got a nice curve in that heart line, which is excellent. Now, you read that heart line from in between the ring finger, the index finger and the middle finger, going towards the outside of your life. Outside, right where I've got the flirt lines marked. And there's kind of a timeline on that finger. So your heart line's pretty clean all the way through till about your middle 40s. And then any places that you see the little islands in the lines, there's stress marks. This says physical injury up here, but it's a stress mark. That means there's something wrong. And then that shows all the way from your 40s, kind of your middle 40s, all the way till the end of your life. You've got some stress marks on that heart line. So perhaps fixing that heart didn't completely cure it. And I'll tell you why here when we get down to the headline. Because you've still good heart line up to your 40s. Did you have a heart attack in your 40s? Because your lifeline sure looks like it. So your stress marks still show on your heart line till the end of your life. But that line can change. And you'll see when I tell you about the spine here what could happen to that line. Let's jump over here to where it says sixth sense. You want to, again, it's like your base of your thumb. You want to see a nice little fat mound right there at the base of that index finger. When you see that little fat mound, that's your intuition or your psychic ability. Yours is pretty good, and you've got some little X's in that area right there by the sixth sense, meaning that you're quite intuitive. So pay attention to that. If you got a problem to solve, just clear your mind and let it. Don't think of anything for about 20 minutes. Come back to the problem, and you'll probably have it solved. That's your intuition kicking in. All right, let's look here to the old headline. The headline, when it goes right across your hand, you're very smart, and you've got a very smart headline. You don't want to see the islands on the headline. So the top part of the spine is in between the thumb and the index finger, and going across the hand, that's the lowest part of the spine. And I can see little islands all through there at the top part, about the waist area. It's kind of below your middle finger. That's about your waist area. And then in your lower back, you've got some problems. But if you look on your spine chart, look on the back of that, and it'll show you what a vertebrae looks like. You got two nerves that come off of each side of the vertebrae. And if those are twisted out of place, that makes a nerve sensation. Actually, it's a pain signal, and they go about every 3 seconds. They go bzzz, 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 and that sends a pain signal through there. The nerves intermesh with the muscles, makes muscle spasms. Well, you've got a really bad spot in your spine right there at your 2T, which is your heart nerves. And those nerves will send a signal over to your heart and will cause all sorts of stress with your heart. You can see where it says areas of the nerves. All the nerves come off the spine. They end up in your part of your body, and then they end up in your hands and your feet. So the area that the nerves end in is marked in the one column, and the effects that you get are marked in the second column. And you can see where it says functional heart conditions, chronic fatigue, anxiety, blah blah blah. You know, you already experienced that stuff with your heart, but you're out of place in your spine where your heart nerves are. Oh, by the way, I did see the break in your Heartline where you'd had the operation. It's right underneath that space in between your ring finger and your little finger. You can see where those little islands start. And I could see that in your Lifeline also. It shows also in your Fate line. I skipped your money line. Go back to where your money line is on the left side of the paper. It's the red line. It starts at your headline, and it's going along pretty good. You got a little break. It overlaps, which doesn't mean you're completely without money, because everything overlaps. But when you get to the later part of your life, you got 3 sources of income in your later life. You've got one little break in there, but that's all in that money line. That's the red marks going up in between the ring finger and the little finger. Not a bad money line, but it's got a lot of changes in it. It looks to me from the side of your hand, right where your Lifeline starts, that's your birth. I'm getting an island on that line on the side of the hand, the one image you sent me. It looks to me like you had a birth injury, and you sure had a little mess in that Heartline on your left hand, more so than on your right hand. Your right hand's kind of cleaned up, and it sure looks like a birth injury. But then you got some injuries on that Lifeline from at age 7, 8, 9, 11, 13, 17, 18. What'd you do, play football or race cars or something like that? Because you sure got the good injuries. Little lines coming up off of that Lifeline are achievement lines. If you look up there at the upper left-hand corner of the paper, those are your achievement lines, and I've circled the ones that are extra good. So I get an achievement at 22, 31, good one at 39, 47, 48, 49, a good one at 54. Of course that was a good one. 57, good one. 60, a good one. 62, a good one. 65, 75. Looks like you'll really blossom out there in your later life. Well, and then I get those 2 achievement lines right there underneath that achievement finger, that ring finger. By the way you hold your hand up, you got spaces between your fingers. That indicates a very independent person. That's a pretty good personality trait to have. Now, going along that Lifeline has to do with your lungs and your breathing. So any breaks in that Lifeline generally are an out-of-body experience, or if you have to have the operation, you're on anesthesia, it'll break that line, because then you're not breathing on your own. But I get a break at about age 42 or 43. Again, indicated to me that you might have had a heart attack at that time. I actually get a little visit from a guardian angel at about age 39. If you've got a good guardian angel story, email us back and let us know if you got something that happened to you that's got a little storyline that goes with it. So I get that little visit from a guardian angel line, and I've marked it in red where it comes into the Lifeline, and I put GA on it. I'm doing that right now. That's about age 39, and then about 42 and 43, I get a break in that Lifeline. And then, of course, when you have the operation, which is down kind of around at the real base of the hand where the Lifeline is, you can see where you've had the operation. And you've got several little breaks in there. A little bit of congestion in that Lifeline going around the base of that palm. When you get to the side of the palm, that's about age 56 or 57 where that Lifeline goes there, and it continues to go on around your hand, around the back of your hand. Let's look at your fate line here. When that comes right straight down your hand, you're a quite private person. If it swings out to the outside of the hand, you're sociable and you like to have your friends and family around, but yours is quite private. It comes right straight down. But I'm getting a big island in there. Now, breaks in that fate line are changes in your career or your lifestyle. Looking on the right hand only. So I get a real strange marking in your early teens, almost like an injury. It's quite a large island. And then I get a break at age 38, and it moves over. It overlaps and moves over. So it's a change in either your career or lifestyle at 38. Another change at 45. Then I get a big change at age 50. And where you had the operation at 54, I get kind of a small change. Did you change your career, or did you go on disability or something? It's not a real big change like I saw at age 50. 50, I saw the bigger change. And then that line stays the same all the way up through about age 79. Now that line usually will go right up to the middle of that business finger, but yours kind of veers over and goes off to the left side a little bit. It doesn't go over a little bit, it goes a whole lot off to that side. And when I see that line, it usually indicates that you're jammed in your spine. I see it all the time. People have had car wrecks or whiplashes or been football injuries, or when they've done in sports and things like that, they've got some injuries. I see it a lot on the Cowboys. So that line stays the same up through 79, and usually that's the line that tells you how long you're going to live, and that's how far I can get you to 79. However, if you get that spine straightened out a little bit, because boy, it's way out of place. You get you a nice gentle chiropractor or a physical therapist and straighten that spine out, you're going to see the lines in that hand change. In your heart line, you'll lose a lot of those islands in that heart line. You don't want to see islands in any of your lines. You'll lose the islands in the heart line, and you'll lose the islands in that head line, which are kind of in between your thumb and your heart line. That line then where it shows that it goes off the side of your finger will probably straighten up, and highly likely it'll extend your life if you get that spine straightened out. Also, a really good trick to straighten that spine out is yoga and walking. I had a walking club that I did about 7 hands with the girls in the walking club. Every single one of those girls had perfect spines, because you got those 2 big old muscles that go up and down that those vertebrae, and they keep those vertebrae in place, straighten the vertebrae right out. So walking, if you're out striding and moving those big back muscles, that's important to keep that back in place. But you may have to have a little bit of help to get that back straightened up a little bit, especially up in between the shoulder blades and the neck area. Basically, you've got a fairly good hand. That's strange how you've got such a good heart line up until about 45 or so, and then it just changes and gets islands on it. Looking at your right hand, you can see that where underneath the in between the ring finger and the little finger, it starts to get islands on it just all of a sudden when the line